for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast 2019. Here we go. I'm Steven Jotter, and joining me, as always, are Makafai and Jake Watroba. Things are a little bit different for today's episode. We got a couple of announcements as well as a lineup change. Boys, Armand, Jake, Happy New Year. Did you guys enjoy a little break from the soccer craze?
It was nice to get away from you guys and not talk to you guys at all.
I mean, to be honest, though, like, did we really get away from the soccer craze?
I did.
There was just news breaking left and right. I took a 7-day Twitter break, but like
you guys took breaks from Twitter for like 2 weeks, though, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, I took a week break. Yeah.
I would say that was the best decision I've made in a long time. All you listeners out there, continue listening to the podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Uncle Sam Soccer Pod. But if you need to take a break from Twitter, highly recommend it. 1 week, delete the app. Just go read a book or something.
I mean, for me, just getting away from the hoopla, I think was really nice. And I don't know, but I mean, I don't think any news broke when
That's
I was
a
off
lie.
Twitter, so. Okay, what news broke?
Christian Pulisic.
I think I was on Twitter when that happened.
Okay.
But
Anyway, listeners, as I said, we have a couple announcements. First, you know the podcast is on any major podcast platform, so go ahead and subscribe to our show. Give us 5-star rating. We don't have a paywall, so any 5-star rating means a lot to us, or anybody who hits the subscribe button, it means a lot to us. Secondly, like I said, follow us on Twitter, Uncle Sam Soccer Pod, at Armand Kafai, at Jake Watroba, at Steven Jotter, and send us all your mail, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we're going to start doing some new things. Rather than dumping one big episode on Monday morning, you're going to get snippets Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then the big show on Friday. So pay attention to that. And for this week's focus is all about Christian Pulisic's signing for Chelsea. So let's get to today's episode. All right, boys. So for segment 1, we got a special guest joining us. He's not on the line just yet, but Brandon Busbee, host of London is Blue podcast. We're going to have him on talking about what exactly does Christian Pulisic mean to Chelsea Football Club. But Jake, I want to begin with you. You're the Chelsea fan of the show. When you saw the official announcement by Chelsea Football Club that Christian Pulisic was going to the club, the American, you know, this big name, massive, what a whopper of a transfer fee, 73 mil. What was going on through your head? Liked the move? Didn't think the move was good? What were you thinking?
I mean, naturally, as an American, I'm pretty stoked that Chelsea, my Premier League club, signed him. I mean, I think if we were to take a step back here and let's just say, you know, from like an outsider's perspective, I guess, or as a fan of a different Premier League club, I guess I would look at it and probably say Chelsea overpaid for him. Is he really worth that $73 million price tag? And like you've kind of have alluded to over the last week or so, and you know, is he a starter at Chelsea, or is he more of a bench player, rotational player? So, I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I'm definitely excited. I definitely want to see him prosper and develop more with the club, and you know, definitely become one of the turn into like a world-class player at one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Right, Armand. Here's some facts for you. Pulisic's fee was the 27th most expensive in the history of the sport. Pulisic is the third most expensive player aged 20 or younger, behind Mbappe and former Borussia Dortmund teammate Dembele. Third biggest transfer in Chelsea history. Christian Pulisic also becomes Chelsea's 41st player out on loan because he's not joining till the summer.
Well, the crazy thing is, with a fee of what, $73 million, I think first off we should marvel that an American player developed in America, who went to Dortmund at 17, is being is worth that much money. I think we should all marvel at that fee. But at the same time, it's really interesting because a lot of debate between, I guess, people in the media and fans is, will Christian Pulisic play? And go backwards, like 5 years, and someone with a fee around 73, 74, 75 million, you'd expect them to play off the get-go. But with the inflation of the transfer market and how big just these fees have gotten, it's not a guarantee. And I think that's the most fascinating thing about this whole deal. We're not sure how Christian Pulisic is going to be at, $73 million? I would say, 5-6 years ago, we look at Christian Pulisic, $73 million. That's a massive transfer. He's going to play. This is amazing for American soccer. But now I feel like there's more skeptics than ever. And I find that as a result of the inflation in the transfer market.
So is it fair to compare Pulisic's fee to other Americans?
I would, but you have to be careful because I feel like there's more of an inflation now than we've ever seen before, the influx of money involved in soccer. I mean, I don't know if you can really compare it to Josie Altidore when he went to, I think, Villarreal in La Liga. I think it's kind of tough to compare it to him.
That was in 2008 for $9.5 million.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of tough to compare it to that as well. Because that would probably go up a little bit as well. It's tough to even compare transfer fees in general.
No, you're right. Money. You guys roasted me for trying to do that.
Yeah.
And John Brooks in 2017, age 24, went from Hertha Berlin to Wolfsburg for just under $20 million.
I guess it's the most comparable one you could find out there. But
then you gotta.
He's not Pulisic. He's not Pulisic's stardom, and
not even that. It's a defender versus an attacking winger, center midfielder. Completely different. Prices per position changes. Look at the prices that Liverpool paid for Alisson. It's an absurd amount for a goalkeeper.
Let me kind of jump in here real quick and just say that I think what we also need to look at is the fact that Christian Pulisic went to a Premier League club versus a Serie A club or a La Liga club or a club in Ligue 1. The Premier League, teams in the Premier League, because of all the money that is associated with that league, probably have to pay. They're paying a premium or a tax, if you will, I guess. On players coming into the league versus a Barcelona or a Real Madrid or PSG might have to pay. I don't know. Would you agree, Armand, on that?
Yeah, with the media rights deal, we tend to see teams like Chelsea who have overpaid for players in the past. Their goalkeeper, his name is evading me right now. Jay, help me
call him
out.
Kepa. I can't say his last name. I just call him Kepa.
Was Kepa really worth that much money? If you think about it, I don't think his value was that much. But because I think was it Bilbao stood really firm and forced him to pay the release clause. I'm not sure if it was Bilbao the team. Forced him to pay the release clause. The price went up. I think you're right, Jake. There is a tad of a premium, but also I think the other sides of things, such as him being an American and the number one thing we always talk about, marketing, also play, I think, a little bit of a role in that fee as well.
What's really interesting? I wonder, anybody out there on Twitter, you might want to do this, if there's a way to compare transfer fees from past years. The problem is, we tried comparing John Brooks to Christian Pulisic, and that's a 2-year difference. But in that 2 years, Neymar moved, Mbappe moved. An absurd amount of money has been thrown out. So it's really hard to really put these players in a position and compare their prices and their meaning and their value. Because Christian Pulisic, $73 million, that's what he was valued at Chelsea. What about Arsenal? Maybe Arsenal had a value of $63 million. Maybe Liverpool was like, oh, he has a value of $80 million. Maybe Chelsea's, Dortmund were in agreement. Anybody who's actually seen how transfer fees and how clubs communicate with each other, it's a lot more complicated than what you get in FIFA.
Yeah, of course. And it's tough to, again, go like compare transfer fees because you have to look at the relative situation. All of it's relative, you know. It's for example, I mean, if you look at what England, you're gonna pay more for an English player because they fit the homegrown requirements and they're a domestic player, so that won't count against your homegrown the lack of homegrowns that you have. So there's always different scenarios. I mean, it's not like we have an inflation index that we can just compare. I'm like, oh, it's changed over years. This is what happened. I mean, I'd probably say that Neymar transfer was one of the ones that really triggered this whole changes in pricing. I mean, also you have to realize the influx of money from the ownership group. So I mean, back to Pulisic. The crazy thing is we don't know if he's gonna be a true starter on this team. And the fact of the matter is, if we go back to what he was doing at Dortmund, look, he was backing up Jordan Sancho. He wasn't starting. He was getting minutes on the bench. He was outplayed by Sancho. So I think we lose track of that as well. And I think it's great business by Dortmund to get 73 million for a guy that's, he's not getting in there. He's not playing consistently in terms of starting week in and week out.
Well, let's get more into the Chelsea perspective.
Joining us now on the show is the host of the London is Blue podcast. He is Brandon Busbee. You can follow Brandon on Twitter at @BBusbee and the podcast at London Blue Pod. Brandon, how you doing today?
Doing really well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
And listeners, Brandon is actually in London. So, how's London treating you?
It was great. We came over about a week ago. We got news that Pulisic might be signing, so we had to go show up and make sure we got the deal across the line and make sure nothing happened. So, in all jest, it's been the perfect timing to be here and kind of have that news break. It was amazing.
Absolutely, Brandon. And you were in England. What was the perception, of the Pulisic signing from Chelsea fans, if you talked to any of them?
Oh yeah, so we have that's all we've been talking about, honestly, the last 4 days or whatever, with a lot of our friends over here. So obviously, if you're American, ton of excitement, ton of hype, a lot of positive momentum behind it. Our UK-based friends are a lot more split over it, to be honest. I would say that some of their precautions are really, they're like, oh, well, last time I saw him play against England, okay, well, yeah, we lost 3-0, and we didn't have a head coach and a lot of other things. So they're going off an extremely small sample size. Or the other thing we hear a lot is that he's still unproven, or we'll see. They just kind of have that doubt in their mind. I'm like, guys, this isn't Matt Miazga. It's a different situation. Let's give him some time to do it. But I would say credit to the journalists over here. They see this as an extremely positive signing. If anything, they think Chelsea may be paid more than what they should have, but that, who cares? It's not our money to be spending. But the journalists think that, this is kind of back to that era where Chelsea are signing young, up-and-coming, creative, attacking players. And who doesn't love that?
No, it's really interesting. Does Matt Miazga leave a sour taste for Chelsea fans?
It's not a sour taste. It's more of like, wow, we did it for an agent. It was a favor, is the way they look at it. They never really were like, oh, yeah, Matt Miazga is coming in to challenge John Terry and Gary Cahill 3 years ago. He was just looked at as another one to go into the loan army.
I think this is a good point to talk about Chelsea's recent history with young players. Brandon, I'm sure you've heard U.S. soccer fans are worried that Pulisic will be relegated to the bench or even loaned out now that he's has signed with Chelsea. Obviously, he is loaned out to Borussia Dortmund right now. But why is the Pulisic signing different than, say, a Michy Batshuayi signing or a Kevin De Bruyne or even a Mo Salah?
Well, I mean, all of those guys came from smaller clubs. I mean, Borussia Dortmund is established in the Champions League. He's, been playing in Champions League for a couple of years. He has, solid numbers playing against big teams in Europe, playing against big teams in Germany. And I think the biggest thing for us is, Salah was a bit of a surprise, if we're being honest with ourselves. De Bruyne, he came from Genk in Belgium, and we didn't know much about him. Even Michy, he had one good season in France. Christian has easily 2-3 solid years. a body of work to go off of. And the other big thing is that, he is carrying a lot of weight on the U.S. men's national team as well. And that's no small burden. And there are a lot of eyes and cameras and interviews being pushed his way. And the way he deals with himself with so much kind of maturity, and he knows what to say. And, he's focused on the results, not getting caught up in the limelight. I think a lot of that just kind of goes into, why he's different than those players.
Is there a bit of concern, kind of, I guess, maybe a little bit of a recency bias, since Pulisic has kind of been more on the bench with the rise of Jadon Sancho, especially. Is there more of a concern though? Hey, he's not starting week in and week out, and the transfer fee of $73 million. It seems quite a bit for a guy. But like you said, I mean, it's not our money, so we shouldn't be that concerned about it. Is there a little concern, amongst Chelsea fans in general, that hey, look, like we paid for a guy that's not even we pay that much for a guy that's not starting week in and week out?
Yeah, that's another hot talking point right now. Like, oh, one of our young players, Jadon Sancho, put him out the team. And that's not exactly true. He has told Dortmund since the beginning of the season, is what's been reported, that he wasn't going to sign his contract. So they've essentially been behind the scenes trying to figure out what they're going to do. The rumor is that Chelsea and Dortmund had this deal confirmed and wrapped up in late fall. They just were going to wait until the transfer window opened to announce it. So I think a lot of that has to do with it. I believe you guys probably know better than I do that he had a bit of an injury earlier in the season as well. So to me, I think if a club, they have a bit of a contract rebel, it's an easy excuse to play someone else, to put pressure on that player. But, this isn't his first season breaking through like it is Jadon Sancho's. He's got 3 seasons, to go on as a record of his reliability.
Yeah, I personally have this weird feeling that Pulisic is not underrated, but I have a weird feeling that he could easily turn around and be a De Bruyne or a Salah. I saw quotes at Pulisic. He likes Chelsea's style, he likes the coaching, he likes their way, but I personally don't see him fit that style. To me, Pulisic was either more of a Liverpool type player or even an Arsenal, where it's a little bit more of that tiki-taka play that Arsenal's so famous for. And my feeling is, because he's only 20, I don't know what he's going to do in the next 4 years. If it's not the results that Chelsea expect, he might get sold off to another big club in Europe. And then, by the time he's 28, Chelsea fans are going to be like, why did we do this again where we sold him off? That's just me. Maybe I'm just too cynical in general, but I have a weird feeling from the get-go that Pulisic was the price was always too high. When the earlier reports were coming out with Liverpool and Chelsea, I was like, oh my God, the expectations, and all the Americans here putting expectations on Pulisic of being this, world-class player.
Sure. Look, there's no guarantees that he starts or plays. I mean, that goes for pretty much every player at Chelsea. This to me is a bit of the end for Willian, I believe. I think he'll be the one that will leave this summer. I think Pedro will stay because we can get more for Willian. And so if you look at it that way, that's what they're looking to do with him, essentially, is get him his opportunity to play as quickly as possible. I think waiting till the summer so he gets a full preseason is really smart, instead of trying to bring him in mid-season of a coach's or a manager's first season. The good news, if you're worried about the style of play, is that Maurizio Sarri is changing Chelsea into a tiki-taka, pass-heavy team. We're recording between 700 and 1,000 passes a game, and that's also a massive point of contention amongst Chelsea fans right now. Is there's a lot of passing and no end product. But I think that Christian is going to have the chance to come in. He was bought to make an impact to the team. My understanding is that he was purchased irregardless of who if Maurizio Sarri was a manager or not. He was a target for the club, when Conte was there. They were wanting to sign him last year, and then this past summer as well. It just didn't happen because we didn't have a manager at that point. So the club hierarchy favor him big time, and that will help him, especially when the managers feel pressure from the the owner and the hierarchy to play him, he will get his chances, and it's up to him to take him and run with it because everyone knows at Chelsea there's no time for patience. You either are successful or you're out the door. But Christian's got a ton of talent. I'm really excited to see him go out there, do what we know he can do. And I think he'll really surprise the local fans here with just how exciting and attacking he can be.
Brandon, do you think this signing happened in the winter due to I heard Grant Wall talk about this on a podcast earlier this week, that Chelsea's facing a transfer ban this summer. Do you think that's the reason why this got done now and not in June or July?
No, I mean, when Barcelona got their transfer ban, everyone always appeals it when it happens in the summer. So then the ban starts in the winter. I don't think that that's an issue. Also, Chelsea haven't been charged with anything. So we don't know if that is or isn't going to happen. But look, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and everyone else that gets those transfer bans, they appeal them so that the process delays until the window's done. They can get their business done, and then it kicks into the winter. So I don't buy that. Also, I think it got done in the winter from what's being reported on the Chelsea side is because United also had massive interest in him, but they couldn't convince him to go there when they didn't know who the manager was going to be. So instead of Chelsea getting into a bidding war with United and, other teams across Europe, they just paid an extra, $10 million or whatever and got it done now.
Brandon, I mean, on Twitter at least, I saw that one sorry quote where it talked about, I didn't know Pulisic was I know about the deal yesterday, blah, 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 all that stuff. Do you think that was just do you think people are just making too much out of that comment that Sarri had?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. In my perspective, what they said is Maurizio was like, hey, the club came to me a month ago, said, we're looking at Christian Pulisic. We're in negotiations. What do you think of him as a player? Again, before this, they almost signed him in the summer. He's a club target for what, the club identify him as a young, up-and-coming attacking player. They want as many of them as they can get. So they came to Sarri and said, hey, we're looking at signing this kid. What do you think? He said, looks good to me. All right. They got the green light from the manager. They went and did the business. He knew it wasn't going to affect him. And essentially the club didn't need to say, oh, hey, we got it done. He had already greenlit it, and it was up to the club to do the negotiation, get the contract and the details down. And he said that. I do think it's a bit of a, people from the outside kind of trying to stir up controversy where it doesn't exist.
Yeah, Brennan, as a Chelsea fan, I kind of saw that as, Maurizio Sarri's first language isn't English either. So I think there was a little bit of, I don't know if lost in translation is a good way to put it, but I didn't really see that quote or that comment as concerning as some people might have found it. But last question here before we let you go. Can Sarri and Chelsea get more out of Pulisic than Borussia Dortmund did?
It's a great question. They got some amazing performances out of him. I mean, Borussia Dortmund put Pulisic on the world stage, made him a bit of a household name. It definitely helped him in the United States. But the fact that people around Europe know him is because of what he's done in Germany at Dortmund. Now, it is now Chelsea. They saw the potential. They paid the money for him. That is on them to get the best out of him, just like it is their job to get the best out of all their players. So they need to play him in the right position. They need to put him in a team that is set up tactically to get the best out of him. And we'll see how that goes. But while I'm excited that he is at my favorite club, I also am cautious in the sense that a lot still needs to happen for him to become, one of the very best at what he does in the world. And I'm really, really hoping that things click. He hits the ground running at Chelsea, and we're all just looking back at this in 3, 6, 12 months time saying, what a brilliant piece of business this was for Chelsea. And not only him, because as you can imagine, I'm, kind of straddling the fence here with my United States fandom and my Chelsea fandom and saying, man, I really hope Chelsea don't screw him and ruin his career. Because, man, that would be the worst thing for me. So, that's kind of how I see it at this point, is it's an opportunity for Chelsea to help him get to the next level, which is exactly what he wants.
No, I mean, I think you speak for a lot. But I know Jake said last question, but the expectation, I was just going to ask you, what's the expectation around Pulisic, though? In your eyes, do you think he can become a Premier League giant, as in the next couple of years, we'll be like Pulisic is, at the end of the season, one of the starting 11 when they put the team of the season together?
So from a Chelsea fan's perspective, so the guys and I have been talking a lot about this week. We really think that if Willian or Pedro will go this summer, and I think what a perfect situation for a young guy to come into. He has a seasoned veteran where either if it's Willian, someone who is, played at the very highest level for a long time, they can teach him some stuff, isn't in complete favor, right? Like he could still come in, get minutes, even still steal a starting spot. Or Pedro, who has won literally everything under the sun. He will get to learn from them while still getting a lot of chances to get in there. So honestly, I think that the expectations are you pay that much, just like that he should be starting. And, they have the same expectations for Morata right now. The fans are upset with him. We paid way too much money for him, and he hasn't delivered on that. It'd be the same for Christian, unfortunately, if he didn't deliver whatever it is the fans think that, he needs to deliver.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us on the pod today. I remember Brandon is the host of London is Blue podcast. Go ahead and plug, the podcast and your Twitter name. Just shameless plug. So plug everything where you can find you and the pod at.
Absolutely. Look, we're 4 Americans. We're split all over the country. We record every single week after, and it covers everything Chelsea FC. We've actually had the absolute pleasure to interview players such as David Luiz, Willian, Azpilicueta, and recently Ruben Loftus-Cheek, as well as Ali Riley, an American playing for New Zealand. So I can promise you that we are legit and that it is a fun time. We really enjoy just talking and having a good time about our beloved Chelsea. So again, at London Blue Pod on all social media, and you can check us out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Brandon.
Have a good one, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again to Brandon for joining us. Boys, last minute here. Expectations at Chelsea Football Club for Christian Pulisic, who is on loan at Dortmund till the end of the season. Is he going to do a Salah, De Bruyne type of thing, or is he going to be an Eden Hazard type where he becomes a staple of the club and move the club into a new direction?
Is it possible that he won't be a star, but he'll be a consistent starter week in and week out and play pretty good, but not worth that $73 million price tag?
That's possible.
That's my take.
All right.
That's a good point because I feel like it's with a lot of people it's either Christian Pulisic is going to be part of the Chelsea loan army for the next forever,
or he's going to be amazing,
or he's going to be Gareth Bale and get sold on to Real Madrid in 3 years or something like that, or going to be the heir apparent to Eden Hazard. Like why can't Christian Pulisic just be a consistent starter on the right side of the at the winger position for the next several years for Chelsea? And maybe he's not Mo Salah or Kevin De Bruyne, something like that, but maybe he's just consistently, just a good first team player.
I think consistency is a really underrated attribute.
No, you're right.
Being consistent is huge.
You're right, and just not being injured. I mean, Bill Belichick and the Patriots have this mantra of a player that's available is a lot better than a player that's unavailable, regardless of their talent. So. It might be a cold take, not really a hot take to say I think Pulisic, it might be just a consistent starter week in and week out. But if you're an American fan, you have to be ecstatic if that's the case. Come on, guys! Marketing is huge.
Are you really going to be bitching about one of the top players in America playing for Chelsea week in and week out because he's not a star or something? He's better than everyone else, and come on, man! That's just my thought, man. I think we're more likely going to see a consistent starter week in and week out. That won't be worth that $73 million price tag. But like Brandon said, I mean, it doesn't matter in terms of us because it's not our money. So
Follow us on Twitter, UncSamSoccerPod, at Steven Jodren, at Jake Watroba, at Markify. Come back for part 2 tomorrow. We talk about solidary payments.